can you feel it?
I feel it.
Can you feel it? Playoff fever is in the air. Most football teams just one game left in the regular season, and things are getting pretty interesting.
They are very interesting. We'll get you totally caught up on football, but we also want to let you know we're going to have some volleyball action as they prepare for their own postseason coming up, so stay with us for that too.
Yeah, with that, let's waste no more time. Get into our weekly rewind segment. Legacy traveled to Dickinson for pole position in the playoff hunt. The winner all but securing a playoff spot, while the loser would more than likely be out. Sabres quarterback Jason Hoekstra threw for 3 touchdowns as Legacy broke their 3-game skid with a 25-0 shutout win. The loss means Dickinson now needs a win over Minot and a Legacy loss to Jamestown to qualify for the playoffs.
This win was very important because we got to win out to get the playoffs, and that's our goal. We got to win every week to play another week.
Fargo Davies led 6-0 after a quarter, but after that it was all West Fargo. The Packers put the hammer down from there and went on to win 40-15. Chase Teichen another 125-yard night with 2 touchdowns, but it was the defense that shined brightest again. The Packers set a school record with 6 interceptions, including 2 from Alessandro Genova.
Century and Bismarck locked up on Friday in the rivalry game at the Bowl, with the winner earning a secure spot in the playoffs. The teams traded scores through 3 quarters, but Century came through in the 4th and held strong on defense to take the game 21-13 and guarantee their postseason berth. Jacob Rader ran for all 3 Patriot touchdowns, while Cade Lynch came up with a big interception to help seal the win. Lucas Butts did run for 140 yards and 2 scores in the loss.
It's a crosstown rival. It's been this way forever, man. And we just want to come in and finish the job and become regional champions.
And we're putting ourselves in terrible positions sometimes, and we just got to bounce back from that and fix up a few things and fix up some of the unsportsmanlike penalties and, just come together as a team and play the football that we're very capable of.
It was the Jason Gallrap show for the Cheyenne Mustangs. The junior running back carried the ball 18 times for 208 yards and 3 touchdowns to boost West Fargo Cheyenne to their 3rd win in a row by the score of 28-0 over Fargo North. News wasn't all that bad for the Spartans as Bobby Gunderson turned this circus catch in the loss, but the team was eliminated from postseason contention.
Small consolation.
Nice catch.
I guess. Fargo South jumped out to a 28-0 halftime lead and cruised to their 4th win in 5 games, 42-13 over Grand Forks Central. Jack Pfeiffer threw for 223 yards and a score, while Xander Lukowski ran for 119 and 2 touchdowns. He also returned a fumble for a score on defense. All right, it is game ball time now, Jason. We just talked about him. And West Fargo Cheyenne's Jason Gallrap, incredible in his team's win over Fargo North. He's a big reason that the Mustangs have gotten things rolling here.
Yeah, big night for him. We just said it, 208 yards on the field, and he is really ramping up his game toward the end of the year, but not the only guy to talk about. A ton of guys on this list. We talked about Teichen and Hoekstra and Lucas Butts, who week after week is getting it done, but some of these Class B guys, Hunter Rodine, another 300-yard passing game. Austin Erlob turned in 6 touchdowns, and the list goes on and on with impressive performances.
Of course, the last games in AAA and AA finish up tonight or Saturday. And in AAA, here's what we know in terms of the postseason qualifiers. On the East, West Fargo and Cheyenne both in for sure, but the matchup between Davies and South has a lot of playoff implications. Davies will get in with a win or be eliminated with a loss. Meanwhile, Red River still hoping that there's going to be a spot open for them by the time they play North on Saturday.
Yeah, that's going to be a big game to see if it's even worth anything. On the west side, we know Minot, Century, and Bismarck now are all in. Legacy probably in, so no suspense there, but we'll see how that all shakes out seed-wise. That's still a little bit of a mess right now. But if Minot beats Dickinson tonight, they will secure that number 1 spot, and that's what you want to avoid West Fargo as long as possible.
Well, right, and guarantee yourselves all those home games
as
well. So, all right, AA, Shanley, Hillsborough, Central Valley, Kindred, Central Cass have qualified in the East, while St. Mary's, Beulah, Dickinson Trinity, and Watford City have all made it in the West. Saturday's games are going to decide the seeding questions that remain.
That's right, and as far as Class A goes, here's a peek at your playoff picture for Saturday. Northern Cass, Larimore, Deslex, Burlington, and Hazen all earned first-round byes, so they'll take on the winners of these games on Saturday.
All right, and then finally, let's take a look at the second round schedule for the 9-man playoffs. Those top 8 teams that had byes are all going to host first round winners. The defending champs travel to play the number 1 overall seed in Thompson. That's an interesting matchup. There's a couple of them here.
There's a couple really good matchups. You look at Cavaliers going to be in for a good game. Kidder County making it this far, a huge win for them. So lots of great matchups to check out coming up on Saturday in the 9-man game.
All right, well, that is a wrap for our North Dakota recap and playoff preview, I suppose. And that means it's time to switch to South Dakota, where Madison suffered its first regular season loss since 2012. Find out how it all went down when we come back.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
All right, welcome back to Varsity Sports. Jason Andera, Jay Elson. Time to hit the South Dakota rewind button now. And Sioux Falls Roosevelt built a 34-0 halftime lead and closed out Rapid City Central for a 54-28 win. Torrin Deverage threw for 4 touchdowns, including 3 to Nate Barnes, while Caleb Walton Blandon accounted for all 4 Cobbler scores. Roosevelt now turns their full attention to the only other undefeated team in 11 AAA. They'll round out the regular season Thursday night against Washington.
Well, let's see how Washington did last week. Their quarterback, Jaden Johansson, left the game in the first quarter due to injury, but Seth Benson picked up that slack with a running touchdown, a passing touchdown, and a recovery in the end zone. It was Tupac Capea who was the star of the night, 301 yards rushing in that 35-7 wins, and he didn't even get into the end zone with that many yards. That is almost impossible.
O'Gorman beat Huron 24-13 thanks to a quick start and a great defensive performance that helped them hold on. OG quarterback Hunter Thompson, 12 of 26 for 163 yards and a touchdown in that win.
Brandon Valley rolled out the road graders and paved their way to 282 yards rushing against Lincoln. Braden Peterson led the trio of running backs with 102 yards and 2 scores. And that Lynx defense also shined as they picked up another shutout, 35-0 win over the Patriots.
The team with the most wins in 11 AA visited the team with the fewest, but that disparity wouldn't be reflected in the score. Harrisburg had to grind it out in the fourth quarter to finally take and keep the lead against Brookings, as the Tigers earn a 26-16 victory. Harrisburg's Jack Anderson ran for 2 scores for Harrisburg as they remain the top seed in the class.
We get back to our fundamentals a little bit in the second half. I think we want to try to do too much. We want to be a hero in the first half instead of just being 11 great football players on the field at one time.
The Mitchell Colonels popped the Peer Governors 42-13. Once again, it was Spencer Negebauer. He hit pay dirt 4 times in the game, now with 27 touchdowns on the season. That is just 10 shy of the South Dakota 11-man record for touchdowns in the season. And he has possibly up to 4 more games to chase that record.
I think he's going to get there.
He's going to.
But we'll see. Both T-Area and Madison entered Friday night undefeated, and after a 25-0 start for Madison, it looked like the Titans would be sent home with their first loss, but quarterback Peyton Conrad rallied the troops and reeled off 28 straight points. Now, Madison did have life in the final moments, but Conrad ended the game as he makes an interception on defense. All told, he goes 73 yards rushing, throws for 201, and 3 scores, as well as that pick to end the ball game. What a night for Peyton Conrad.
Doesn't mean we're going to stop working. This makes us want it all the much more, and we know that if this is how great it feels, then I want to be feeling that November 12th.
Well, he came out, and I thought we were down a little bit right away, and of course then they scored right away, quick, and got down 25-zip, and we just told our guys, you got to keep fighting, do what we do, and they did, and it turned out okay in the end.
Wolsey Wessington dominated Woonsocket Wessington Springs Sanborn Central by the score of 54-6. Darian Ogunjimalusi rushed for 233 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now the Warbirds head into 9AA playoffs on that right foot.
Yeah, they do. All right, time to hand out our Week 8 game ball. A lot of times we just look at numbers. This week, it went beyond those numbers, and what Peyton Conrad did in the context of the game certainly makes him deserving of this week's ball. Again, runs for 73, throws for 201 and 3 touchdowns, and picks off the pass at the end that seals it for the Titans.
Yeah, not that the numbers were bad in that instance, but what he did school history, that is probably the biggest win they've had
in
a long time. Some other really good numbers to talk about. Nate Barnes turned in 3 receiving touchdowns, also got a rushing touchdown. How about 301 yards on the ground for Tupac Capella? Some amazing numbers there. All across the board, you see people filling up those stat sheets. Negebauer, this could just be the Negebauer Award on a weekly basis. Almost 200 for him and 4 touchdowns. So another impressive week of line scores across the state.
Like you said, with Capella, amazing that you run for 301 yards, you don't get a touchdown.
Yeah, and as fast as he is.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, coming up, the WDA's top 2 volleyball teams faced off to see who's the best in the West. We've got highlights and reaction from the showdown between Century and Legacy coming up next. And welcome back. Well, the biggest match of the season for Legacy and Century took place at Legacy's gym on Saturday. The Sabres coming off a Thursday loss to Jamestown, their first in conference, but they are still considered Century's biggest threat. The Patriots came in with a perfect 10-0 mark in the WDA and only 1 set loss in conference play. Century did go on to take the first set 25-20 and then took set 2 25-21. But set 3, things turned a bit. Legacy not only came out with a win, but they really outplayed the Patriots for a 25-16 victory there. But Century, though, had enough right about then. They stopped the momentum right there, closed out the match with a 25-11 win in set 4 to take the match 3-1. Reagan Dennis led the way with 16 kills, but Liza Doppler and Caitlin Selensky also added 15 kills. Hannah Schwartz had 24 assists. Sydney Mann led with 20 digs on defense. That win worth 2 in the standings since they only meet once in the regular season, so a huge victory for Century.
A win like this for us is really big tonight. You know, Legacy is a wonderful team where we've been tied at that top all season long, and for us, a big thing is that this was our first 2-point match. Our kids have never had to play 2-point matches before, and so we knew going into it is going to be mentally tough, and our kids hung in there and played a really strong, mental, tough game against a really good team. It's one of our last home matches, and we have 9 seniors on our team, and so for them to come out on a victory against a really tough team and a 2-point match is huge, and we saw really great leadership from our kids on the court tonight as well.
Yeah, it's really bittersweet being a senior with the rest of the 8 girls that are with me, and we're all seniors, and I feel like that makes it more special that most of us are seniors on the court.
Oh, with that win, Jason, Bismarck Century now 30-2 on the season.
Pretty scary. Their only losses this season early in the year in the East-West matchup, and then recently in the Fargo-Shields matchup or the tournaments, and those were just 3-set matches, so it's tough to really gauge them with any losses on the year. So they're firmly entrenched at number 1. Legacy, even with the losses, still at that number 2 spot. I think they're one of the few teams that can really test Century, so they belong there. Red River still on their winning streak. Another big win on Tuesday night. West Fargo Cheyenne did lose to West Fargo, so they dropped 1 spot. And Shanley holding firm in number 5, so some really good teams out east behind those top 2 from the West.
You got Jamestown kind of hanging just on the outside.
They've been playing so well lately. They played well in Fargo a couple weeks ago and then got a big win against Legacy. They are very close to this top 5.
Don't sleep on them. All right, well, in South Dakota, Rapid City Stevens headed west to play some good teams in Huron and Mitchell over the weekend. They lost to Huron in 5 after winning the first and third set. They came back strong with a victory over a ranked Mitchell squad on Saturday.
Yeah, this Stevens team is one team that we don't talk about a lot. They're the first team to 20 wins in South Dakota this year, and they're doing it mostly with their sophomores. Elizabeth Schaefer, 3.4 kills per set this year. Amazing just as a sophomore, and maybe the best setter in the state in Kate Whiting. She is a senior, one of the few seniors on this team contributing. And then up at the net, you've got Carly Buhner and Emily Sobchak, a couple more sophomores who are getting a couple blocks per match every night. A very strong team from Rapid City Stevens this year.
Well, and you mentioned Stevens in that match against Huron. How about Carissa Schroeder? 34 kills.
34 kills, and that is a huge number. But Huron just missing this top 5, much like Jamestown and North Dakota, a team that can beat anybody, but haven't put the consistency together. You see the top 5 looks exactly like it did last week. We've got some interesting matchups this week with Sioux Falls, Roosevelt, and O'Gorman heading out west to play Stevenson Central.
Huron's been in there, though.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're
right
that
there.
good, so they're not. The Tigers are not far off, that's for sure. All right, well, good stuff, Jandy, there. Next, time to start thinking about the player of the year on the high school gridiron. Find out who's in the running, at least our running, after this. All right, we are going to wait for the full season to play out on the football field, but it's always fun to talk a little about who's in the running for Player of the Year. So we've come up with a short list of candidates that we're going to be watching here over the next month or so. And remember, we're going to hand out our Player of the Year awards by class. So let's do that right now. Go by class, starting with North Dakota Class AAA. Chase Teichen, obviously, right at the top of this conversation.
Yeah, 942 yards rushing, 17 touchdowns already, and that doesn't even begin to explain the complete player that he is, because he's probably the best linebacker in all of AAA as well. So Teichen is right in the thick of this, but don't forget about Lucas Butts. He has been amazing, almost 200 yards per game in Western Conference games this year. And then the quarterbacks. You got to talk about Jason Hoekstra, Creighton Rudolph, even Jacob Olson at this point, and Jacob Rader, another running back, two-way player for Century that belongs in this conversation.
Jason Hoekstra on the list as well, and you know, who knows what's going to happen with Legacy here once we get to the postseason, but you've got to be happy for the Sabres with what they've been able to do this year to this point.
Makes that engine turn, and when he is going well, the team is going well. That's a true definition of an MVP.
All right, Class AA, St. Mary's has been the team to beat, so their best player figures to be in the mix.
Well,
right?
and you could have about three guys you could call their best player. Their quarterback, though, Cole Gender, really getting things moving this year. And in fact, in this class, a lot of good quarterbacks to talk about on a lot of good teams. And of course, the quarterbacks are going to get mentioned. Matt Bird, who made that shift back to quarterback this year after playing running back last year for Shanley, has done a great job. Austin Reed, one of the many seniors on Hillsborough Central Valley, doing it. And then Ethan Lingen, he has turned Kindred around. And then the top running backs in this class, also worth a note, Mikey Morris, will watch him. And Nate Rodriguez in Valley City haven't had this type of season they did last year, but his individual performance has been strong.
It's kind of been surprising to see the way Valley City's fallen off a little bit here down the stretch of the season. All right, in Class A, Larimore, led by Rice Verkulen. Yeah, sorry, excuse me. Boy, that team's been dominant. The Polar Bears have been ridiculous.
Anytime they feed this guy the ball, he is getting it done, but you see the list is going to be tough to beat. Two-way quarterback Jacob Hansen doing a great job. Jackson Hankey moving to quarterback, probably the best athlete in this class, but number-wise, you got to look at Wyatt Carr and Dylan Jepson, especially Wyatt Carr, putting up some huge numbers for Hazen.
In the nine-man ranks, there's a lot of good teams, no shortage there. And we've seen some gaudy statistics across the state.
This is the tough part, to figure out what these statistics mean, and we're going to learn a lot about these guys in the next 3 weeks.
Sure, yeah.
That award is going to be won in the next 3 weeks, but you have to point to Adam Diedrich, the best player on the best team in the class. Hunter Rodin, how about 300-plus yards passing per game, and putting up 5 to 8 touchdowns per game.
That's a fair range
in that mix. So, and that's per game. He's got to be in the mix too. But we'll see how they lead their teams here in the next month. That's going to tell us.
That's going to be the determining factor for sure. All right. Well, look forward to figuring it all out and awarding those
South
players.
South Dakota next week too, by the way.
And South Dakota stuff coming up. As Jandy said, just a week away. We'll cover the same stuff. So stay tuned. The fun parts is about to go down. Jason and I are going to make our picks for some of this week's top matchups, plus our upset picks after this.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
All right, another segment of Pick'em coming your way right now. And just as the football teams, volleyball teams want to be playing their best at the end of the season, we want to be making our best picks.
We're trying.
At the end of the season. So, Jandy, good to see you rebound after a couple of rough weeks.
Thanks, Dave. Still 1 point behind the Mastiff. Let's see what happens.
Both of us 3-1 a week ago. We're going to pick 4 and pick an upset again and see what happens from there. Let's start in South Dakota volleyball. Good one here, Roosevelt and Stevens.
Yeah, we were just talking about Rapid City Stevens in the volleyball segment today, and I think this team with the group of sophomores are not sophomores anymore. These guys are true varsity players and getting better and better as the season goes on. They were close against Roosevelt the first time around. I think they nip them this time. Give me the Raiders.
I don't think so. I still like Roosevelt, even though they do have to make the trip out west, and that's tough. The Raiders play it on their home floor, but I still like Roosevelt to get the win, so we differ there. All right, South Dakota football, we're also going to talk about Roosevelt, the biggest game, the one that everybody's been waiting for, at least in terms of AAA. Roosevelt and Washington. It's maybe not quite as interesting as it might have been, or maybe it is because of the injury to Johansson.
Well, that's the big news, is Jaden Johansson left due to injury, uncertain to his status on this game coming up on Thursday. And how much does this game really mean? Well, it's an intercity game. Of course it means a lot, but you want that number 1 spot, but it's not huge at the end of the year.
These teams are going to be playing at Howardwood regardless.
You just don't want any injuries in this game.
Right.
So I do think Roosevelt is going to eke out a win here in a very close battle. You could go position by position, and it's pretty much dead even.
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me if anything happens, but I'll take the Riders.
Yeah, you could. It could very well come down to turnovers. Who plays the cleanest game? It's a little concerning not knowing more about Johansson. Not exactly what his injury is or how long it might take him to be back to 100%. So all that plays into the fact that I like Roosevelt as well. All right, North Dakota high school football now. Velva Sawyer travels to Killdeer, a couple of 6-2 teams.
Velva Sawyer has really ramped their game up over the last couple of weeks, but Killdeer, so tough on defense, and Dylan Jepson getting it done on both sides of the ball. Just too big of a load to handle. I'm going to take the Cowboys.
Cowboys 3-1 at home. Only loss was to a pretty good Hazen team a couple of weeks back. Also, North Dakota football, Hillsboro Central Valley 6-1 goes to Shanley 7-1.
This Burroughs team made the transition from A to AA last year. It took a bit of a hit. This year, they've figured it out. These seniors have started for 4 years and are coming into their own. I think the Burroughs get a little bit of an upset here.
They're a legit team. There's no question about it. Both teams beat Kindred, so you draw on that comparison. But I still like Shanley on their home field. Their defense, I think, steps up in big spots. I'm going to go Deacons in this one. All right, finally, quickly, upset picks.
I'm going to go to the volleyball ranks to get my upset.
Okay.
Here, a team that's right around 500 is going to knock off Mitchell in a very tough District 3 on the road.
All right, well, I'm going to go back to football and the 9-man ranks in North Dakota. I like TGU to get the win over New Salem Glen Ullin. TGU tested in their region. Close losses to North Prairie and St. John. I think they're ready for this one.